I'll never slow down, no, I don't take crap, I have no love for the fakeness. If you want to play tough, I want to hate this, I'll always show, although I'm sure.
I'll never slow down, no, I don't take crap, I have no love for the fake. If you want to play tough, I want to hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I never slow down, no, I don't take crap, I have no love for the fake. If you want to play tough, I want to hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Although, sure, I'll slow down.
No, I don't take crap, I have no love for the fake. If you want to play tough, I want to hate this, I'll always, although sure.
Hello friends, this is extremely interesting and must have Russian defense companies pulling their hair out. Because the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has officially launched Trofilab, which is a secure digital platform that grants access to governments, allies, defense manufacturers, research institutions, and specialized laboratories. Verified, unprecedented access to detailed technical data, analysis, and vulnerabilities of Russian weapon systems captured by the defenders. Minister Mikhail Oferov stated that the Ministry of Defense is launching this platform to provide verified users with access to information about Russian weaponry and technologies, which they will be able to study in detail. We are convinced that knowledge about our adversaries' technologies should not remain restricted, but should be used by those who build defense systems. He also emphasized that every missile, drone, and vehicle captured from the invaders on the battlefield is now an open source of knowledge for the free world, transforming the technologies that the Z Horde intended to use. Minister Mikhail Oferov stated that the Ministry of Defense is launching this platform for verified users from the battlefield in collective assets that we will use for the defense of democracy. The platform also offers 225 complete technical profiles of the systems, including composition, components, specifications, high-resolution photos, and videos, in addition to engineering diagrams that identify vulnerabilities and performance characteristics. Moreover, authorized users can request physical samples to conduct their own tests on more than 115 weapon systems from 79 categories of Russian military armament, ranging from missiles to tanks. Access to this information is expected to drastically reduce the countermeasure development cycle, allowing partners to test solutions directly against actual enemy equipment, instead of relying solely on theoretical models or limited intelligence. Ironically, the more weaponry the invaders deploy on the battlefield, the richer the dataset becomes, creating a positive feedback loop where Ukrainian successes on the battlefield directly drive the advancement of Allied systems. Now, the Armada and the Felon definitely won't approach the Ukrainian battlefield, lest they end up under the microscope. There are new developments in the mid-range attack campaign against the Horde's logistics, as the invaders have installed 2 advanced electronic warfare systems, specifically designed to disrupt the Starlink signal. Thus, they can block the Hornet drone's control signal. However, the 422nd Unmanned Systems Regiment Luftwaffe, belonging to the 17th Army Corps, carried out 2 precision strikes against the Russian complexes, Volna, Kupol, Garand, on June 14 and 16, which is a mobile satellite jamming system developed and manufactured by Rossitsky Kupol in Simferopol, Crimea. Each complex, which is estimated to cost approximately $1.5 million, consists of several trailers equipped with parabolic antennas that transmit interference directly toward the Starlink satellites. Each unit can suppress the signal in an area of approximately 20 square kilometers and can interfere with only one satellite at a time. The invaders began deploying these systems from the land corridor toward Crimea, with the aim of protecting the logistical routes from Ukrainian medium and long-range attack drones, which are seriously interfering with the supply of fuel and other goods in the occupied territories. However, the reconnaissance operators of the Alpha unit of the SBU identified the position of the systems and called for 2 strikes with Bulava loitering munitions, which were carried out by the operators of the 422nd Regiment. It is worth noting that the attacking drones maintained their video transmission without interference throughout the entire sequence, which makes it clear to us how effective the Orcs system was at jamming the Starlink signal. Anyway, orcs being orcs. The invaders are also trying to innovate at their own pace, which is thankfully very slow. In this case, the Russian company Gumich RTK has presented a mobile robotic anti-drone defense complex based on 2 unmanned impulse ground vehicles. The first one is called Impulse RLS, equipped with a radar that identifies and simultaneously tracks multiple low-flying targets at distances between 4 and 18 kilometers, information which it transmits to the attack platform. This one is called Impulse Zero Boy, or Beast Hunter, equipped with launch containers that can be loaded with attack drones or specialized aerial interceptors, which neutralize threats through direct impacts. The invaders hope that both vehicles working together can provide a mobile, cost-effective, and scalable response to the defenders' swarm of attack drones. By eliminating the presence of human operators in the danger zone and using relatively inexpensive interceptor drones, Ivan will be able to provide continuous anti-air coverage to his forward positions, supply routes, urban areas, and critical infrastructure. We'll have to see how the Horde's creation performs, but I doubt they'll withstand a coordinated drone swarm targeting, for example, the vehicle with the radar. On the ground front, the 3rd Army Corps of Ukraine announced on June 14 that its air defense units destroyed a record 3,762 unmanned aerial vehicles belonging to the invaders during May. This is the highest number since the formation of the Corps at the beginning of 2025. This achievement represents an increase of more than 1,000 interceptions above the previous record and is due to the effectiveness of the multi-layered, tiered air defense system that protects Ukrainian positions along the Borovsk and Lyman fronts. The system not only protects frontline troops, but also hinders Russian reconnaissance and reduces the lethality of enemy attacks. The 3rd Army Corps was formed in March 2025 under the command of Brigadier General Andriy Veletsky, who has transformed his unit into one of the most technologically advanced formations in the armed forces. In fact, the Corps is also actively developing and integrating ground robotic systems, as it aims to replace up to 30% of infantry missions with unmanned platforms by the end of this year. And speaking of missions for robotic systems, the soldiers of the Alter Ego Battalion of the 93rd Mechanized Brigade, Kolodnijar, used a ground robotic system to help an exhausted elderly woman who was traveling on foot from Konstantinivka to Druskivka in the Donetsk region. The woman was leaving her village carrying her belongings in a cart, accompanied by her 2 dogs. When she became too tired to continue walking, she asked a Ukrainian mobile fire group she met on the road for help. At that moment, a robotic ground platform operated by the Alter Ego Battalion was returning from a logistics mission. The soldiers stopped the vehicle, and the woman, her dogs, and her belongings were loaded onto the unmanned system for the rest of the journey to Druskivka. Upon reaching their destination, where the soldiers had to recharge the robotic platform for its next mission, the same fighters provided transportation for the woman and her animals to Kramatorsk, ensuring their safe arrival. The incident was documented in a video released by the brigade's official channels, showing the practical use of robotic vehicles in a humanitarian role, which complements their main functions of combat and logistical transport. Something that always catches my attention is the concern that Ukrainians have for their pets and wild animals. They show us this again in this video, where we see how they use a Baba Yaga bomber drone equipped with a transport rope, where they attach a bag with a group of kittens which are evacuated to the rear. This operation sums up everything we admire about the defenders, It's an act of compassion, deep empathy and altruism, without expecting anything in return. Just concern for these little furry lives. Pure humanity. So come on, you may not like cats, but this is definitely the cutest thing you'll see today. Hello friends, how could we not start with the excellent work of the defenders of the 42nd Mechanized Brigade, who identified the position of a 122mm BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher system belonging to the invaders, operating on the Donetsk front. So a deputinization committee was immediately sent, made up of a couple of attack drones, although only one was needed to put it in party mode. So its colleague just recorded the invaders' loss. Love. Whew. Now that's a Z-trucker who was paying attention to the road conditions. And at the last second, he managed to dodge the impact of a Hornet-type drone that was coming for him. The mid-range attack campaign remains intense, requiring even more daring and skilled drivers to deliver their cargo. We'll see if he manages to dodge the next drone that comes after him. We're back with the grads, but this time on the logistics front. Representatives from the Spanish company Escribano Mechanical and Engineering, who were attending the Eurosatori 2026 Defense Fair in Paris, confirmed that they have already delivered more than 10,000 Alcon 122 precision guidance kits to the Ukrainian armed forces since 2023, which allow each Ukrainian 122mm rocket to be transformed into a precision munition. The Spanish kits come in two types. The first variant is guided by inertial navigation and satellite positioning, achieving a circular error probable of 15 meters, which is much better than the accuracy of the Horde's grads. They suffer from significant dispersion in their attacks. The second variant is laser-guided and is called, obviously, Alcon 122 laser, which offers an accuracy of less than 3 meters, even in the presence of electronic warfare and Russian countermeasures. What's interesting is that this version was developed specifically at Ukraine's request and uses 4 independently controlled front fins to maneuver toward the target. Something like the American APKWS rockets, but this time for heavy rockets. It also uses inertial guidance and satellite positioning to navigate, but in the final phase it switches to laser guidance. Around 1,000 of these kits have already been delivered to the defenders. The important thing is that both kits are exempt from the US ITAR regulations, which is the tool Americans use to restrict the transfer of certain sensitive technologies, and has been used in some cases to deny the delivery of systems to Ukraine even though they are manufactured in Europe. Ukraine maintains large inventories of both rockets and Grad launchers. By modernizing them with precision systems, the defenders gain greater capability to carry out counter-battery attacks and also to strike high-value Russian positions, such as command centers and logistics nodes, with less risk of collateral damage compared to massive, unguided salvos. Scribano also reported that they can produce 3,700 kits per year with the potential to increase production if necessary, and they are already in operational use with the 47th Mechanized Brigade and the 60th Artillery Brigade. In the context of the medium-range attack campaign, during the early hours of June 13, unmanned systems forces carried out a large-scale attack against the Crimean Titan chemical plant in Armyansk in northern Crimea. Operators from the 1st Independence Center carried out the attack. The defenders' reconnaissance confirmed direct hits on critical targets within the extensive industrial complex. Numerous explosions, secondary detonations, and widespread fires occurred in the workshops and production areas of the plant. Local residents reported hearing more than 20 impacts and damage was observed in all the main workshops. A massive fire inside the facility led to the evacuation of all personnel and the complete suspension of production operations. The Crimean Titan plant, also known as Krimsky Titan, is the largest producer of titanium dioxide in Eastern Europe and a major manufacturer of sulfuric acid. Located on the Perekov Isthmus, the facility was originally a major Ukrainian company before the Russian occupation of Crimea in 2014, but now it operates under Russian control, and it supplies key chemical precursors used in the production of gunpowder, rocket fuel, propellants, and explosives for the Russian defense industry. By attacking these dual-use chemical facilities, Ukrainian forces aim to create bottlenecks in the production of munitions and propellants. The Alpha Special Operations Center, the elite unit of the Security Service of Ukraine SBU, has released a new video report on the results of their activities over the past week. These targeted artillery logistics units, air defense, and concentrations of invading troops in the rear of the Donetsk front. According to the report, Alpha operators managed to deputinize 4 tanks, 7 armored vehicles, 22 artillery, and multiple rocket launcher systems, 9 air defense systems, 4 radar and electronic warfare systems, 598 logistics and support vehicles destroyed or damaged, 1,182 unmanned aerial vehicles eliminated, and 1,700 orc soldiers neutralized. You see these numbers and get a bit skeptical, but then I remember that each of these attacks has its own confirmation video, which proves that the information is real. In the footage, we see how the Ukrainian operators work as a team, conducting reconnaissance, tracking moving targets on roads and positions, and then launching precise attacks from multiple directions. On the Z-oil industry sanctions front, during the night of June 20th to 21st, the mosquitoes visited Crimea again, and this time they targeted Russian logistical infrastructure, critical on both sides of the Kerch Strait, impacting the TES-1 fuel transshipment complex at the port of Kerch, causing a large fire visible in several fuel storage tanks. Satellite images generated by Planet Labs confirmed that between 4 and 5 of the facility's 7 main fuel tanks were on fire, with intense thermal signals and dense columns of black smoke rising from the storage yard. Multiple ferries used for transporting vehicles and trains were also seen on fire in the waters of the strait, indicating that the aim of the attack was to cut off the flow of supplies to the peninsula. TES-1 is, or was, a modern facility that handles the transshipment of fuel oil, liquefied petroleum gas, diesel, and gasoline, which is a crucial hub for storing and distributing supplies to Russian occupation forces and civilians in Crimea. The General Staff of Ukraine reported coordinated attacks against the TTS terminal tank farm, oil depots at the port of Kavkaz, ferry loading areas, and air defense and radar positions that protected the Kerch Strait area. In response to the attack, the Russian governor of Crimea announced the total suspension of fuel sales to individuals and businesses at gas stations throughout the peninsula, starting at 9 a.m. on June 21, since the remaining fuel would be available exclusively for the government and security services. All of this was undoubtedly part of the Kremlin elders' master plan from the start. The Russian mill blogger Rivar published an analysis of the options Ukraine has to strike the Kerch Bridge. In his opinion, Ukraine will use swarms of lightweight drones with 30-kilogram combat payloads to saturate and annihilate the Russian air defenses in the area, to clear the way for heavier FP-2 drones, which at that distance can carry warheads of up to 200 kilograms and would be responsible for weakening the slab and structure of the bridge. The analysis also indicates that the Flamingo FP-5 cruise missiles, with warheads of around 1,000 kilograms, and the improved versions of the Neptune MD missiles, surface naval drones, and underwater systems, are also a threat that could generate a combined simultaneous attack, capable of overwhelming Russian defenses and effectively damaging the bridge. I hope the much-anticipated flamingo migration happens soon. Now, if the invaders lose the bridge and the Ukrainians manage to choke off the land and sea supply routes, the peninsula could finally be isolated, making the situation for the Russian forces and for the million Okubas who have come from Mordor to live in Crimea unsustainable. Hello, friends. The defenders take care of neutralizing a Z-Horde Panzer S-2 air defense system that was operating in the Zaporizhia region, which was entering its protected shelter, so it managed to avoid the impact of the first drone. However, drones rarely operate alone, so the defenders sent another drone, which entered the shelter at a perfect angle to ruin the whole day for the Panzer crew, and the system's destruction was confirmed by another drone from the swarm. It is important to keep destroying these types of systems to keep the way open for the torrent of Hornet drones heading to Ivan's rear. In a precise airstrike carried out on June 21, the Ukrainian Air Force destroyed a key bridge on the M18 highway over the Kurachokrak River in Vasilivka, Zaporizhia Oblast, which is an important land supply route used by the invading forces to transport troops, ammunition, fuel, and other materials to the positions on the southern front, which is about 20 kilometers away. Ukraine has focused efforts here, since repairing a bridge during active combat is complex and time-consuming, especially with defenders actively patrolling the area with attack drones. The drone operators from the Rubaka unit, belonging to the 77th Air Assault Brigade, found a Grad-1 rocket launcher system that the Russian invaders had left out in the open. On the Novoselivska front in Luhansk Oblast, it was completely cleared of Russian forces with 3 drone strikes. The Grad-1 is a lighter and more compact variant of the Russian BM-21 Grad 122mm multiple rocket launcher. It was developed in the early 1970s as an alternative to equip fast-moving units. To make it lighter, it has 36 tubes instead of 40, a lighter chassis, and it can only fire short-range 122mm rockets. Ivan appears to be using all his remaining resources to keep up his offensive. The campaign of medium-range attacks against the invaders' fuel tanker trucks, even inside Crimea, is so intense that the invaders have decided to protect their convoys with anti-aircraft trucks armed with twin 23mm automatic cannons. These are supported by mobile air defense groups armed with machine guns mounted on pickup trucks that patrol different parts of the peninsula's roads. Although, honestly, it seems that the strategy still needs some adjustments according to the driver of this tanker truck. Or those in this convoy, which was also completely demilitarized by Hornet drones, a condition that was confirmed by a couple of Russians who passed by shortly after the attack and witnessed the state of the fuel and supplies Ivan sent to the front. But don't worry, the armed trucks are fine and are still keeping watch. In any case, maybe with these blessings from the Z-Priest, the fuel will start flowing from the pumps miraculously. On the strategic sanctions front, during the night of June 19th, operators from the 413th R-Aid Battalion of the Unmanned Systems Forces attacked the underground gas storage facility, Hlivitsky, near the village of Dozorn on the Tarkin-Kut Peninsula, Crimea. This is the only underground gas storage facility on the peninsula, and it suffered critical damage to its surface structures, which resulted in a fire and secondary explosions. This gas storage facility plays a vital role in the area's energy infrastructure, as it regulates seasonal and daily peaks in gas consumption, maintaining stable pressure in the gas transportation network throughout the region. In addition, the facility directly supplies important thermal power plants, including those in Balaklava and Tabriska, which rely on natural gas as their main fuel source. These power plants provide electricity to the Horde's military facilities in Crimea. Other targets attacked during the operation included a Rapaynik coastal surveillance radar, locomotives in Rostov, on Rostolna, fuel tanker trucks, and a command and observation post of a Russian motorized infantry unit in the Donetsk region. The Ukrainian Air Force has been particularly active these days, and on June 22 carried out a broad daylight attack with 9 Storm Shadow cruise missiles against the Voronezh VZPPS semiconductor device plant, located 500 kilometers from the front, which produces electronic components used in Russian air defense weapons, like the Pantsir S-1 and cruise missiles such as the Iskander-K and the KH-100-1. To make it clearer, this plant was the only one capable of producing high-tech components that could replace foreign microchips that Mordor can no longer access due to international sanctions. Ukraine's strategy is to directly attack chip factories instead of simply continuing to shoot down missiles over the front line. This way, they use the systems they already have instead of continuing to wait for more Patriot missiles to arrive. It's a long-term gamble, but if they keep attacking the production centers of advanced weapons systems and impose stricter sanctions to prevent the trafficking of Western microchips to Mordor, eventually the number of systems they can produce will decrease. On the technological front, footage has emerged of a unit of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces training with what appears to be an acoustic device. LRAC 1950 XLRT, manufactured by the defense technology company Genesis, based in California. The system projects a directional sound beam with an opening of about 15 degrees, concentrating the acoustic energy instead of transmitting it omnidirectionally. This allows operators to intervene in a specific area without saturating the entire environment with noise, which would allow, for example, disabling a group of enemies while the operators approach to capture them. The Ukrainian Special Operations Forces are tasked with conducting unconventional warfare, deep reconnaissance, and direct action behind enemy lines. The appearance of an acoustic system mounted on a vehicle could be due to the unit exploring options for non-lethal, non-kinetic capabilities. Now we will see something different. To expand the number of drone operators in the unmanned systems forces, the Ukrainians developed a simulator called the Ukrainian Fight Drone Simulator, which has 2 versions. One focused on training military crews, and another open to all types of users, which is available on the Steam gaming platform. This version allows users to experience some of the missions and challenges that Mosquito drone operators must face in a realistic environment. According to the developers, on June 23, a system update will be released that will allow players to now work as a team to complete missions, just as they do on the front lines, so they can learn to fly like a frontline pilot. This simulator was created by instructors, engineers, and drone pilots to speed up the training cycle for new pilots and to help them learn from mistakes in the game that, in real conditions, could cost equipment, time, and even valuable lives. The combat scenarios recreate dispersion tactics, attack route planning, operations in an electronic warfare environment, and coordinated attacks. In this way, operators can literally accumulate thousands of hours of training without risk, so they arrive on the battlefield already prepared for any scenario. Among the units using the platform are the 1st Azov Army Corps and the 20th K2 Unmanned Systems Brigade. It follows the trend of Ukrainian units showcasing the vehicles they use to depopulate the invaders. In this case, the operators of Unit A and D show us their Vampire bomber drone, to which they have applied a type of camouflage. Well, since it generally operates at night, I don't think it's a big problem, except for Ivan. Go for it, ladies. Hello, friends. The Millblogger Z fighter bomber, who seems to be a retired pilot from the Mordorite Air Force, is flying through stormy skies these days, as many of his colleagues are harshly criticizing him for revealing the arrival of fuel in Crimea. The Ukrainians fully exploited this information. But what happened? Well, on June 17, in an attempt to refute widespread reports about the fuel shortage in Crimea, Fighter Bomber reported on his Telegram channel that fuel has arrived in Crimea. A lot. And more is coming. 3 days later, the first separate center of unmanned systems, the elite Ukrainian unit specialized in strategic attacks, left him a message expressing their thanks for his assistance in the operation to attack the oil transshipment center at the Kerch Strait terminal. You'll believe me, that was enough to anger another 1,000 Russian bloggers. Vladimir Romanov wrote, "The Ukrainian armed forces officially expressed their gratitude to the idiot for the information that contributed to the attack on the TES-1 fuel terminal in Kerch. I think the security services in Voronezh should give a personal thank you to the big mouth." In any case, let's be fair, the defenders have multiple ways to get the information they need. So at most, Fighter Bomber's message only gave additional confirmation. But come on, it's fun to watch them fight among themselves. All that's left to say is, great job, Fighter Bomber. And the way things are going, don't get too close to your building's windows, unless you want to fly. This photograph is interesting because we see two strategies used by the invaders to camouflage their tanker trucks that transport oil. On one, they wrote milk on the side, and on the other, they're installing a fake box to try to make it look like a regular transport truck. Maybe some of you don't know this, but the Russian army was once considered the second most powerful in the world. In this footage, we see how the Horde is adapting some of their courier ground drones to distribute smoke-generating mines across the battlefield to create large smoke screens. The goal seems to be to confuse the Ukrainian observation drones, hiding the movement of assault groups trying to infiltrate the defenders' lines. The dense smoke released by these devices spreads quickly, forming extensive smoke barriers that cover large sections of terrain, hiding troop rotations from forward positions, evacuations of the wounded, or preparations before an assault. They also distract Ukrainian drones to certain areas, keeping them from spotting other movements. It's a pity that due to their composition, they can't block reconnaissance drones equipped with thermal cameras, so we probably won't see a significant drop in the number of demilitarizations at the front. On the logistics front, the United Kingdom has made rapid progress with the Breakstop project, an initiative by the Ministry of Defense to equip Ukraine with long-range precision missiles that are low-cost and completely free of American components, in order to eliminate any restrictions on the export and use of these systems in Ukraine. These systems allow for deeper and more consistent operations against high-value Russian targets, without the external vetoes that previously limited systems like the Storm Shadow and the ATAC EMS. Launched in November 2024 by the Ministry of Defense, the program challenged the British industry to develop a low-cost, ground-launched cruise missile capable of reaching targets over 500 kilometers away, with a 225-kilogram warhead. 3 competing prototypes emerged from the program: the Crossbow from MVDA United Kingdom, the Tiger Shark from MGI Engineering, and the Skylance from Rotron Aerospace, all of which successfully completed flight tests in the spring of this year. All of them rely on proprietary navigation systems that avoid using U.S. data or components, ensuring the United Kingdom has full control over export and combat employment decisions. The first operational batches are expected to be delivered to Ukraine by the end of this year. It looks like Ivan will be receiving a large number of gifts by air this Christmas. On the Black Sea front, during the early hours of Monday, June 22, a Russian drone struck the Turkish-owned bulk carrier Big Victors while it was sailing towards a Ukrainian port. The attack caused a large fire that destroyed the bridge, resulting in the death of 1 crew member and forcing the other 18 crew members to abandon the ship in a lifeboat amid the flames. and they were rescued by Ukrainian Navy patrol boats, who also confirmed that the ship suffered considerable damage and is no longer able to continue sailing. The attack on the Big Victors was not an isolated incident, as during the same night Russian drones attacked 2 other merchant ships that were heading to Ukrainian ports. Although they suffered damage, they were able to continue their journeys without any injuries reported among their crews. Ivan the Pirate seems to be trying to block the passage of ships transporting agricultural products from Ukraine, whose export revenues Ukraine's economy depends on, but which also represent an important part of the world's food supply, something that's clearly not important to the invaders. Despite participating in the campaign to attack Ivan's rear, the operators of the 414th Brigade do not neglect their duties with the orcs at the front, and they continue their campaign to unceremoniously expel illegal tourists and orcs who have entered Ukrainian territory without invitation. Operating with the calm and efficiency of those who have already performed this task many times, they dedicate part of their days to reminding this plague of unwanted visitors that the fertile Ukrainian fields are not available to be occupied unless it is as organic fertilizer. Boys and girls, remember, none of those soldiers were forced to be there. They entered a foreign country to invade for money. They could have stayed at home with their families, doing any respectable job. And now they're being blown to pieces by a $300 explosive mosquito. Even the orc biker gangs who use rural roads as if they were their personal racetracks get the dose of stick therapy they need delivered by airmail. The drone operators of the brigade corrected this misunderstanding with their usual precision. During the following days, multiple groups of orcs tried to camouflage themselves among the fields and bushes, apparently believing that crouching in the shrubs would make them invisible to the local authorities. But the 414 Brigade did not agree at all. One after another, these camouflage visitors received clear aerial instructions to leave their positions and literally fly toward more welcoming skies. The locals clearly have no patience with the invaders, and the little they do have runs out quickly as soon as they see a group of orcs trying to camouflage themselves among the trees and bushes of the Ukrainian countryside, after which they send the same order as always. Your visa has been denied, so you'd better head to the nearest exit or ditch, whichever is closer. In the final count, we learned that in just the first 18 days of June, 5,745 of these determined visitors received their official notifications that their special military operation had been permanently canceled. You already know, Ivan, if you're planning to sign the contract for an unauthorized visit to Ukraine, maybe you should reconsider, since while the scenery is beautiful, the people are belligerent, resourceful, and the welcome is, let's say, very selective. The end of the video brilliantly sums up the invaders' confusion at being received as they deserve, and on the other hand, the welcome message sent to them by their hosts. In any case, not everything is a loss. Remember that each invader can fertilize 10 square meters of Ukrainian soil. Hello, friends. A couple of days ago, we showed you how a fuel truck made a last-minute evasive maneuver to dodge a Hornet attack drone. But now we have the point of view of the drone operator, who is clearly very focused on his mission, but can't help being surprised by the effective maneuver of his target. The good thing is, the drone didn't crash and likely found another target ahead. I don't think it went back for the truck for two reasons. First, it would have to catch up at high speed, draining its battery. And second, because the drones operate in swarms, so it's very likely that another one was flying further back along the same route. On the southern front, the great tanker truck hunt is still underway, and one of the participating units is the 422nd Unmanned Systems Regiment, which uses a wide range of systems, including long-range attack drones and loitering munitions. Bulava, which seem to be this unit's favorites, which obviously doesn't make Ivan happy at all, since he can't find a safe place for his trucks from the wave of killer drones chasing them. And let it not be said that the drone operators from the main intelligence directorate aren't doing their part in meeting the quota of invaders' logistics trucks. On the southern front, those operating mainly on the R-280 highway between Melitopol and Sankoy, which connects Mordor with Crimea, and which is the main land corridor for the movement of troops, ammunition, fuel, and supplies. The footage shows that the invaders have built pontoon bridges next to the Chongar Bridge, over which logistics trucks are crossing, and they are hit right when they are on the road to block it, while Ivan is unable to remove the damaged truck from the way. This causes traffic jams that allow more mosquitoes to arrive and join the party. You can also see how multiple trucks of all kinds are hit by Hornet-type drones. It's interesting that the trucks are clearly carrying electronic jamming modules on top of the cab to try to block the control signal of their predators, which again don't seem to be affected in the slightest by that signal. We can mention this because the video quality is extraordinary, which is impressive if we consider that these are radio-controlled drones, since at that distance they can't operate with fiber optic control systems. Another sign the defenders made a major breakthrough in radio control, likely beyond just adding Starlink antennas to their drones. The operators of the Ronin unit are using a new generation of attack mosquitoes to strike logistical targets at distances greater than 50 kilometers from the line of contact. What's different about these new systems is that, apparently, they are completely immune to the electronic jamming devices that the invading horde has installed on their Bukanka vans and Light Z vehicles to interfere with the raiders' control signal. The mosquito attacks focus on disrupting traffic at road intersections and also at the horde's checkpoints, where logistical vehicles have to slow down, making them easier to neutralize. This new generation of mosquitoes has been developed and manufactured thanks to the financial support of civilian volunteer networks, such as Serhiy Sternenko's, who stated currently, "The Russians have no means to counter our most advanced drones. Thanks to this, the Ronin are destroying Russian logistics at distances of more than 50 kilometers. The Ukrainians have indicated that this is a temporary technological advantage, since the invaders are constantly adapting, so they are already working on new versions of these systems." Well, all of this is to keep providing the personalized attention that each of the illegal tourists deserves. But to maintain that advantage, the defenders are not alone, because the NATO Allied Command Transformation and the NATO-Ukraine Joint Analysis, Training and Education Center have officially launched an innovation challenge for persistent airfield denial, which is a competition offering up to 250,000 euros for innovative solutions that allow preventing an unnamed adversary, but we all know who it is, from freely using their military airfields. In other words, every combat mission starts at an airfield. So by attacking aircraft on the ground before they take off, destroying runways, fuel depots, and ammunition storage, disabling their hangars and ground support infrastructure will allow the defenders to drastically reduce this mysterious adversary's ability to project its air power. It sounds to me like the defenders want to create a version 2.0 of the successful Operation Spiderweb, which unexpectedly neutralized Ivan's strategic air force. Drawing on Ukraine's extensive operational experience in the current conflict, the challenge recognizes that traditional approaches, such as attacks with fighters, manned bombers, multiple rocket launch systems, or conventional loitering munitions, often lack the mass, persistence, and resilience needed to operate in environments with heavy electronic interference. The kind of thing Ivan is so fond of. That's why the initiative prioritizes autonomous or semi-autonomous systems, capable of generating sustained effects in contested airspace, under any weather conditions, and able to accomplish the mission, even after experiencing disruption of control signals or navigation due to interference. This challenge represents a new evolution of defense cooperation between NATO and Ukraine. Instead of focusing on intercepting air threats or reactively protecting Ukrainian airspace, it emphasizes neutralizing the air threat at its source, calling on private innovators to leverage Ukraine's proven battlefield experience to generate rapid and viable operational capabilities in weeks, or at most months, instead of the years a formal military development and acquisition program would require. The announcement has sparked strong interest in defense and technology circles and has also unnerved Mortarite aviators. On the autonomous combat front, the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine released an operational record demonstrating the growing capabilities of Ukrainian unmanned ground vehicles working at the front, where we see them armed with machine guns, systematically hunting and destroying Russian attack drones that are lying in wait to ambush the vehicles, or the defenders' infantry and then go on to carry out high-risk logistics missions, casualty evacuation, and personnel rescue. In the video, we see the perspective of the operators driving their vehicles through muddy roads, open fields, and terrain between the positions of both sides, using onboard cameras and digital targeting systems to identify threats, firing bursts from their heavy machine guns to neutralize the invaders' positions. In one sequence, the robotic platforms advance under the cover of darkness or low visibility, laying down suppressive fire that neutralizes several of Ivan's drones that were lying in ambush. The tactical advantage these systems provide in environments dominated by aerial threats is that they can keep Ukrainian troops out of the kill zones. As a Ukrainian commander said, "Robots don't bleed." That's why the Ministry of Defense is working together with allied countries to rapidly expand the number of ground robotic systems available to frontline forces. So it has contracted the manufacture of 25,000 robotic systems just for the first half of 2026, more than double the total acquired during all of 2025. To conclude, the damage report from the attack on the Moscow oil refinery by Ukraine's unmanned systems forces has just been published by Reuters, indicating that the facility suffered extensive damage and will not be able to operate again for at least 6 months. Good news for the defenders' strategic sanctions campaign against the Mortarite oil industry. I wonder where the swarm of Ukrainian mosquitoes will visit next. Hello friends, the mid-range attack campaign is in full swing, and this time the Ukrainian mosquitoes took out a tactical Bukinka that was carrying a large number of the Horde's attack drones on their way to the launch positions at the front. This is what we could call an excellent catch, whose destruction will also save the lives of the defenders at the front. But it's not the only catch today. The operators of the Steel Border Brigade from the State Border Guard Service destroyed a Russian Tu-S-19 MSTAS self-propelled artillery system and other artillery pieces belonging to the invaders operating in the Kursk region. The Border Guard brigades have become operators of unmanned systems combined with highly effective assault units, skills they have consistently used to attack the equipment, shelters, vehicles, and artillery that the Russians concentrate near the border, using drones, loitering munitions, and infantry reconnaissance teams. The Tu-S-19 MSTAS is the main Russian 152mm self-propelled howitzer with automated loading, a range of up to 29 kilometers, and great mobility for rapid repositioning. It is a fundamental pillar of Russian artillery doctrine, providing crucial fire support for ground offensives and carrying out long-range attacks against Ukrainian positions and civilian settlements in the Sumy region. For its part, the Russian Automated Unmanned Systems Unit, UN, constitutes it has been actively involved in the mid-range attack campaign, which has managed to neutralize around 500 vehicles in the first 48 days. But it is increasing its pace as 90 additional attacks have been recorded in just 3 days, raising the daily average to about 30 trucks destroyed. This represents a significant intensification of operations, which are also being directed against roads, bridges, and bases in the rear of Andonetska, Sabarilla, Kherson, and Crimea. The campaign takes its name from the area of action of the units that focus on intermediate distances between 20 and 200 kilometers behind the front line, which is the zone where Russian forces move their vulnerable supply convoys. Key routes such as the R280 highway, which connects Rostov-on-Don with Crimea through Mariupol, Berdyansk, and Melitopol, have earned the grim nickname Highway of Death among the truck drivers of the Horde. The charred remains of hundreds of trucks and light vehicles now cover these routes. The Ukrainian Defense Minister, Mikhail Fedorov, has stated that the goal is to achieve a total logistical blockade to deprive Russian forces of the ability to carry out active assault operations and to ensure that the enemy no longer feels safe, even at a considerable distance from the contact line. This campaign of attacks shows no signs of stopping, since Ukraine is not only increasing the production of mid-range drones, but is also perfecting its tactics, including coordinated swarm attack operations, which are putting enormous pressure on the invaders' logistics on the southern front. In this war, control of the airspace over the rear is now as decisive as the ongoing attacks on the front line. On the naval front, on June 23, the Ukrainian Navy detected and destroyed 3 Russian unmanned surface vehicles that were attempting to attack the Ukrainian coast of the Black Sea and were sailing near the Kiev Isthmus. The video shows an aerial platform tracking and attacking the drone with precision-guided munitions, resulting in a powerful explosion and the target's destruction. The targeting interface and symbols in the footage clearly indicate the use of a Bayraktar TB2 unmanned combat drone, marking its return to attack operations near the front after having been practically rendered useless by Russian air defenses at the beginning of the conflict. More concerning, the Ministry of Defense confirmed the destroyed Russian vessels carried Starlink antennas, which Russia still uses because it lacks reliable domestic alternatives for extended maritime drone operations. These terminals are obtained through third-party countries, which allows them to circumvent SpaceX's restrictions on their military use by the invaders. In another sign of the return of the Bayraktars, one of them, belonging to the Ukrainian Navy, was attacked by a Su-27 flanker fighter jet from the Zed Air Force while flying over the Black Sea. Apparently, the Russian pilot was not sure whether the aircraft he was observing belonged to the United States, Turkey, or Ukraine. Instead of using an air-to-air missile, he tried to fly close to the drone and destabilize it with the air current from his fighter bomber to make it lose control. However, the drone operator only made it descend from 20,000 to 18,000 feet, where thanks to its AI-controlled flight correction system and its aerodynamic structure, it managed to recover and continue its flight. Before this incident, on March 14, 2023, 2 Russian fighter jets harassed a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone for 40 minutes, spraying it with fuel and flying close to it. One Russian fighter jet hit the MQ-9's propeller, causing it to crash into the Black Sea. The Alpha Special Operations Center of the Security Service of Ukraine celebrated its 32nd anniversary of founding on June 23. Since the full-scale invasion, 25 members of the unit have been awarded the title of Hero of Ukraine, and more than 1,000 have received state honors. The unit continues to carry out combat missions 24/7 while expanding its capabilities and recruiting new talent, including civilian specialists. The Alpha Center symbolizes discreet professionalism, continuous innovation, and strong dedication to its country. Work carried out in the shadows has results that are visible all over the world. President Zelensky personally commemorated the occasion, recognizing the fundamental role of the unit in transforming the SBU into one of the most formidable special combat services in the world. And that much of this achievement is specifically due to the Alpha unit. Alpha operators operate at the tactical, operational, and strategic levels, from the front lines to deep strikes hundreds of kilometers inside Russian territory. According to data published on the anniversary, Alpha leads the ranking for the destruction of Russian personnel and equipment using drones, as they are responsible for 20% of all enemy infantry casualties. In addition, their confirmed attacks include 1,896 tanks, 3,458 armored combat vehicles, 3,952 artillery systems, 649 air defense systems, and more than 23,500 drones and 23,500 weapons complexes. The unit also plays a key role in Operation Spiderweb, neutralizing 41 Russian bombers and aircraft, causing estimated damage of more than $7 billion. Happy day, heroes. In this footage, we see the physical training undergone by a platoon of defenders belonging to the Logistics Support Battalion of the 3rd Azov Assault Brigade. Even though they are not soldiers assigned to work on the front line, they still have to meet the same physical fitness standards as their infantry colleagues. Something striking is that the vast majority of these defenders seem to already be in their 40s, and some are even in their 50s. I also have to say that the obstacle course looks pretty entertaining, with stations I've never seen before on a military training field. I wouldn't mind trying out that course at some point. To finish, a fun conversation between a couple. It's a Shaheed, my God, look. No, it's one of ours. Is it ours? Yes. It's beautiful. May God help you. The attitude changed completely from fear to pride when he found out the mosquito was Ukrainian. I just love it. And yes, I hope it does very well on its mission. If you want to see additional content about the war in Ukraine, I invite you to visit our 2 new channels where we present information about the war in a different format. Don't forget to check them out. Remember to visit our Patreon, where for just $1, you'll have access to a large number of uncensored videos and documentaries. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel